Hi everyone, my name is Nuno Fonseca from Sound Particles, and it is a huge pleasure to be here today to announce our new groundbreaking product called SkyDust 3D. That is the first 3D synth in the market, and I really hope you enjoy it, so let's watch this. Okay, so what is exactly SkyDust 3D? Well, it's a synthesizer, so it's a virtual instrument. It runs in any digital audio workstation as a plugin, as AEX, VST or audio unit. It's a synthesizer, so it's able to create sound using subtractive synthesis or FM or both if you want. It uses 8 oscillators, it is a polyphonic synthesizer and is able to do very interesting things with a lot of modern features built in, like a modern sequencer, Supresets and many other things that we are going to talk through all of these videos. It's great, fantastic for stereo, but is able of doing something that no other synth in the market is able to do, that is being a spatial synthesizer. Of course, I have a biased opinion, but I really think this is a groundbreaking technology, and we're going to see a completely boom of new synthesizers exploring this, because we want musicians to be able to explore spatial and take advantage of that, and a synthesizer that does that is fantastic. So with SkyDust 3D, you play a note, you get instant 3D sound, and by doing this you start having much better experience for your audiences. Also, regarding the SkyDust 3D, like I mentioned, it has 8 oscillators per voice, which means that each oscillator has its own position in space. For instance, if I play a note, I'm going to have actually 8 oscillators spread into 3D space, like 8 particles or 8 sound sources over there, and this is per note, which means that if I'm playing 10 notes, I'm actually getting 80 particles or 80 sound sources moving around you, and this can do fantastic things in terms of spatial if you are using an immersive setup. The synthesizer is able, of course, to run in mono or stereo. Even in stereo, there are multiple stereo flavors for you to pick up the right stereo version that you want. Of course, you can do things like 5.1, 7.1 and those for surround formats. You can do things like Dolby Atmos format, like 7.1.2, 7.1.4, 9.1.6, among others. Also, you are able to do ambisonics up to 6 order, which means 49 audio channels being output through the synth for you to create an immersive ambisonics experience if you want. Also format like 22.2, and finally binaural, which means 3D sound over headphones. So if you don't have Dolby Atmos Studio and you simply have your stereo speakers and your headphones, you can use your headphones with the binaural output and simply use 3D sound over headphones to explore space and all of this using headphones. Regarding the synthesizer, once again, sometimes can be used in live situations. For instance, imagine that you say, okay, let's bring slightly more better experience to the audiences, and let's, for instance, bring an extra pair of speakers to the back of the audience. So now you start having a 4.0 that, okay, no, it's not all the Atmos, but it can still bring a lot of interesting results in terms of space for your audiences. You play something on the synth and they feel this, the sound coming from all of these directions, something that could be fantastic. But also at the same time, you may be working on your next song and you say, okay, I want a synthesizer, I want to explore this with Spatial. So SkyDust is here to help you with all of this. Either you want to do something for live, or if you want to do something for producing your next song. Regarding SkyDust has a lot of interesting features. So let's take a look a little more about SkyDust and get to know it a little better. Okay, so let's start looking at the SkyDust 3D. So this is the main screen. Of course, we have here presets with big buttons, especially if you are in a live situation, you want to make sure that you are picking the right things. You can also filter by things. So imagine that you say, okay, show me only pads, or show me some other category of by artists or anything else. So we have the presets. Of course, as things happening, you're going to see a lot of particles here. This represents, of course, front, above you, the rear, left and right side. So you see what is happening with you. But let's look more about several other things that we have in here. So this is the main screen. Then we have here the oscillators. Like I mentioned, the synthesizer has 8 oscillators, which means that you can have these 8 oscillators over here, multiple waveforms, noises available. You have also some waveform modifiers in here. So imagine that you want to do some crazy changes in the waveforms, like amplitude offset or wave folding, and some other ways to get even more interesting and with more personality in your oscillators. This is the summary. Also, we have here the information about the envelope generator and controlling gain, an LFO that you can also use to control gain. And then we have the part of the filters where you specify the filters. You may use one single filter in global mode, which means it's the same filter applied to all oscillators, or eventually, if you want, you can even say, okay, this is the filter for this oscillator and for the other and for the other. You can also enable or disable this envelope generator controlling the filters, or even using an LFO specifically only for the filters. Then we have FM modulation if you want to use, so you can control this, and you can create these crazy setups over here to create ways that you want, okay, I want this oscillator to modulate that oscillator. So pretty much as you start making these connections, you can hear changes, everything, ratio, feedback, modulation, gains, all of those things over here. Also, we have the pitch related effect. So we pitch, imagine that you say, okay, imagine that I want using an envelope generator only for pitch, and say, okay, I want the notes to start, for instance, imagine, let me pick here some, for instance, this example. So imagine that you want something like this. So imagine that now I want this oscillator to go from a low frequency and that one octave above. You can even use random values if you want to create even more interesting things. Of course, you can use LFOs to control vibratos of everything. But one of the most interesting things, of course, it's the spatial component of the synth. In here, you have several possibilities. One of them is if you use off state, which means that there is no movement. So pretty much you say, no, I want oscillator 1 to be over there. For instance, oscillator 1 in the left, oscillator 2 in the right, the third at the center, the fourth above me, 5, for instance, on the left side surround, right sound surround. So you can say, okay, where each oscillator should come. Also, if you want, you can create some randomness in terms of position. So which means, for instance, imagine to say, okay, I want this to be more or less over there, so pretty much on the left speaker, but with some variation, which means that every time that you play a note, this oscillator, you're going to have this oscillator of each note is going to slightly different position, so you can say, okay, now I want something completely random, simply go anywhere, or simply more or less over that position. Then if you want movement, and a lot of times we want movement to bring more life to the music, you can use an envelope generator. And with the envelope generator, imagine that you say, okay, once again, this can be by oscillator or exactly the same for everyone. So imagine that you say, now I want the sound to start, for instance, over there, okay, and then attacks to the center, takes half a second to go from back to the center, then sustains, for instance, to the left, okay, and also going from the center to the left at some point, and then release, and I want to move above my head, okay, and take, for instance, almost half a second to go there. So pretty much I play the note starts over there, attacks to the front, goes to the left, and then releases. As I release the note, the release goes above my head. Also, at the same time, I can use LFOs. Imagine that I want an LFO to control the position in space, and I want things to move around. So, for instance, let me pick up here some example. Okay. So, in this case, what we have is having an LFO controlling things. So you have here multiple LFOs that we can use to control the position over there. So if you want to enable, you can say, okay, how much azimuth do you want this to affect azimuth, or if you want this to affect elevation, or if you want to affect distance and bring everything to the mid, which means you get this big mono, everything plays at the same, all the speakers at the same time, versus being only coming from the center speaker or something like that. And there is even a third approach, and the third approach is, okay, let's start, for instance, oscillator 1, I want to start over here, okay, with some randomness in terms of position, and then I pick up which kind of movement do I want. Do I want things to rotate, randomly rotate around me, or I want things to move up or moving to the front, and then on release, if I want to release this to a particular position, or if I want to simply now start rotating in a different kind of way. So, and once again, this is by oscillator, which means with a single note, you get this very interesting results happening around you. Finally, we have here the arpeggiator, of course, with the arpeggiator. So with the arpeggiator, we can simply use a traditional arpeggiator. So, for instance, in here, you can select the pattern. Okay, if you want, you can add even more notes into this. But for me, the most interesting thing is the sequencer. So when you think about sequencer, most of you are well known in having a sequencer like this, where you have these pitch bars, each step with a bar that represents how many semitones you should go up and down. What we thought was, okay, sometimes this is not very musical friendly. We are thinking about, okay, I want to jump to that note, and you start saying, okay, that note is how many steps, okay, it's these semitones. So for us, what makes sense is to use a simply keyboard. So if I want to create something, okay, I can simply come here and say what I want to create. So it's much more easy for you to simply come here and put the note that you are looking for. And once again, if you're using a keyboard, why does it need to be monophonic? So yes, historically it was monophonic, but why not use polyphonic keyboard and say, no, I want this to, for instance, start and doing. So you can create a lot of interesting things in here. Even one of the things that we put here is sometimes something that annoys me a little on some sequencers is that, okay, you are, for instance, in the C major scale, you play C, you get the C major, of course, you play an F or a G, major, but then you want to play A and should be A minor. So eventually if you want, you can come here and say, okay, now I'm forcing a C major scale, which means that C, great, F, great, major, and then A, it's minor. Okay, so pretty much you can start playing around, and the sequencer that you put here adapts to the scale that you are using it, making it much more interesting instead of forcing the same major chords or major arpeggio everywhere. Also, one of the interesting things here, of course, you can add multiple parameters here and control things over here. Of course, you can increase the number of steps. One of the interesting things is that you can also use panning, 3D panning here on the sequencer. So imagine that you want, okay, I want this to be and pretty much having an arpeggio always on this position, and you say, okay, this starts over here, this note should be over there, this should be over there, this note should be in the back, this is back to the front, above me, and then this note should be over there. So pretty much you play this and you get the notes coming from this and creating 3D arpeggio, something that is quite fun to play with. Then we have FX. Okay, we have these 4 slots. You can add here your delayed reverbs, bit crunch, among other things. There is these extra envelope generators and LFOs. As you can see, we tried in terms of user interface to have things more or less organized. So you have the envelope generators regarding pitch on the pitch tab, you have things controlling gains on the oscillators, but sometimes you may want, okay, I want an LFO to control at the same time the resonance of oscillator 1, but at the same time to also control the pitch on oscillator 7. So in here you pretty much you can start using these LFOs and envelope generators. So you have these extra 8 envelope generators and 8 LFOs that you can simply say, okay, I want this to control, for instance, the filter, the resonance of all oscillators. And then you can even specify how you want this curve to react to this and create these crazy curves for that to happen. Finally, we have the matrix. Matrix, it's what a lot of times allows you to do very complex things. So usually matrix is also slightly complex. So in here you have everything, and usually this list starts to grow a lot, especially on well done presets. The thing here is that, okay, imagine that you say, now simply show me things that macro are controlling. So filter things by source or by destination. So, okay, show me something that is changing spatial things. Okay, nothing. So things that are changing, for instance, oscillators. Okay, so I can see this is what is controlling the oscillators. And or imagine, for instance, that you say, okay, I want to do some crazy thing and say, okay, I want MIDI information like modulation wheel to control the spatial elevation of everything, which means that when I'm going to start playing with the modulation wheel, the sound will move up and down regarding all of that. So quite powerful for you to do all of the things. Then in the lower part of the SkyDust you get this, of course, the keys. Okay, you have mono, legato, you can specify the glide time of all of this. We have a kind of mixer by oscillator, because sometimes you want to simply solo that oscillator. So no, I want to simply listen to this oscillator to know exactly what it does and for fine-tuning things. You have meters by oscillators, because sometimes it's easier to identify. Also, when you see things in here on this view, you also have the information about in color, so you know exactly which oscillator are we talking about. Also, we have the macros here, so you can have multiple parameters controlling macros. If you have having a lot of parameters, this starts to grow and starts creating additional pages that you can then play with. And when you press here, you can even change the curves of your macros. You have pads here for you to select multiple parameters and controlling 2 parameters at once. You can use snap if you want to move to a different position. And here we have the spatial views, which means that, once again, if you have something Something like this, you can actually know what is happening. So this is a 360 view, so pretty much almost like a map opening up around you. This is above your head, this is the front, this is the rear, and this is a perspective kind of view, so to help you get more information. There is a help here to read the manual, see some tutorials. Besides that, as you can see, there is this tooltip, this information here show information about all of those things. So some interesting additional features of the synth. First of all, it's this concept of Supresets, as you eventually may have noticed. So when you go to, yes, we have the major presets, okay, the preset of the synth, but then if you go, for instance, to arpeggios, you can see here multiple things that are pre-built. So the idea is to have presets, but of certain models of the synth. So imagine they say, okay, I really like this sound, but give me a different arpeggio. And you can come here and simply move to a different preset within the arpeggiator, maintaining everything else of the synth. Or imagine that you say, no, I really like this spatial movement. Let's use this on the different sound that I have over there. So you can use spatial presets, arpeggio presets, pitch-related presets, and simply use these Supresets all over again, or even use them here on the main screen. So as you can see here, you have this ARP that you can disable and simply use without that, or simply pick up with multiple things and simply having different kind of applications over here. Another thing that you have made notice, of course, here it's the zoom, so this can adapt to your screen, so depending on the resolution of your screen. In here you have the device that will, if you are looking for happy accidents, this is the place that you want to do. So pretty much when you roll the dice, you're going to have a random preset, okay, and what happens is, yes, sometimes some presets will not be very interesting, but some of them might be quite a diamond in the rough and could be a very good starting point for your next hit song. Also, during the dice, you can use this to lock some parameters. So imagine that, okay, I really like this sound, but give me a random special effect. So pretty much I can lock everything else, and now every time that I play in here, I get a different kind of special related effects. So another way of thinking in this happy accident. In terms of format, of course, a lot of format already in here. Stereo, binaural, the traditional 7.1s, ambisonics. In this case, I'm using Pro Tools. There are some things that in this track where I have, this is not, are not supported, but you can still use them on if you put the right track, or if you're using another digital audio workstations. And finally, we have here the settings, maximum polyphony, the MIDI channel if you want to filter to some MIDI channels, pitch range if you want to tune the synthesizer because you are playing the synthesizer with another instrument that is out of tune. And then in here, if you're using binaural, you can use, there are multiple data sets here for you to pick up what is the best binaural for you, because each person has different ears. Or if you are lucky enough to have even your personalized sofa, you can import in here and get the best 3D sound over headphones possible experience. So this pretty much, it's a quick overview of SkyDust 3D. We are going to release SkyDust in 2 versions. One of them is called SkyDust Stereo. It's the 2-channel version of the SkyDust. We're going to have all the features, but only limited to channels, which means that it's going to work in mono, stereo, or binaural, and this is for those that, I don't want spatial related things, I simply want a regular stereo version of the synthesizer. So this is a cheaper version of the synthesizer, and it's going to have a launch price of $149 with a special discount because the regular price would be $199, and then going to have SkyDust 3D full features with a base price of $399, but with a special discount. So during the launch of the Synth, it's going to have a price of $299. So this is SkyDust. I really hope you enjoyed as much as we have been enjoying playing at the studio with this immersive setup and getting 3D sound every time you play a note. So I really hope you have enjoyed. So take care. Don't forget to send your feedback. We always are carving for your feedback. So send an email to any email, support@soundparticles or anything else, or even my email, it's on the manual. So send me an email if you would like. We really like to hear for feedback from your users. Currently, this is only the beginning. This is the first virtual instruments by Sound Particles. We already have a lot of ideas for new updates for SkyDust that we're going to add on the upcoming weeks. A lot of presets we are going to add also even more on the upcoming weeks, and a lot of things that we're going to do. This is just the beginning. And once again, I really like you enjoyed as much as we are. So have a nice day and see you around.